What is up, first round fantasy fans? Welcome to the First Round Strategy Podcast on Saturdays, one of the only fantasy podcast or shows that I know of on Saturdays. This is the second episode. We started this podcast last week, and like I said, this is more of a focused on like strategy and like things like etiquette and kind of ways to just manage your roster and make trades and how to, interact with your league, things like that. But of course, we're going to talk about normal fantasy stuff as well. Excuse me while I fix my hat over here. Okay. But yes, so that's basically, if you listen to the last episode, you know what we're going to get down to and things like that. Same kind of segments, a little bit different today because it's just me. You might be wondering why it's just me. Scheduling conflicts. We couldn't put together at least two of the guys today. So I wanted to make sure we got something up for this. I want to stay consistent. So I'm going to go ahead and bring you guys some of this. And it's a little bit different because it's just me. So I'm not going to do like things that require more than one person. And I'll explain when those things come up. But yes, before we get started, don't forget to check out our audio podcasts. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Basically, most podcast platforms that you use, you can find us on. Just search First Round Fantasy. It's always good to have those options to listen to us on audio. And if you have not, pick up one of these t-shirts or a mug or anything of that nature. Go to tpublic.com, search First Round Fantasy. Shout out to Jake Berlin for the design. Go ahead and pick yourself up some first round fantasy gear. Okay, first and foremost, we're going to talk about the Tuesday game. There was no Thursday game, and we recorded our last episode on Monday, and it went up Tuesday morning. So the Tuesday game is going to replace the Thursday game in many ways for this week. Not much to discuss. Like, we didn't learn a lot other than Derrick Henry is a monster. He continues to be a monster. I mean, we already knew that, but he solidified that. The stiff arm just was absolutely incredible. I changed my fantasy profile picture in one of my leagues that I have Derrick Henry into that stiff arm. It is absolutely incredible. He's one of my favorite players in the league and in fantasy football. Devin Singletary was very disappointing in this game. Before this, my season outlook for Devin Singletary was an RB2. I know they were in basically shootout mode. Not that it was a shootout, but they were in comeback mode. So maybe he's better when they're basically in games or ahead. But I still don't feel comfortable with Devin Singletary as an RB2 anymore. I kind of lower him to a flex option or an RB3. And Ryan Tannehill is absolutely amazing. He should be rostered in every league and started in every league. If you lost Dak, to me, Ryan Tannehill is a better replacement than Andy Dalton is until we see something legit from Andy Dalton. Josh Allen had a solid, he didn't kill you if you're a fantasy manager. I lost a match because I was playing against Josh Allen, and that last touchdown helped that fantasy manager win. So he didn't necessarily kill you there. A.J. Brown is back. He's a beast. Set it and forget it as long as he's healthy. Jonnu Smith is a monster. Why did I trade him away in a league recently? Probably because it's a keeper league and I'm not competing. But I didn't I knew how good he was, but then I was looking deeper into it. And, man, he is the number one tight end in fantasy right now. And I traded him away. But I got some young prospects in that. I got Antonio Gibson in that trade. So not too upset about it because if I'm not going to win this year, I might as well get an Antonio Gibson type player back. Stephon Diggs continues his terror. He continues to prove Gabe wrong, Gabe from the podcast wrong, that he is going to be at least a top 15 receiver or above, like the rest of us smart people at the fantasy football first round fantasy podcast predicted. Just kidding, Gabe. We get some wrong, we get some right, but we'll see. I mean, the season's not over. He could technically drop to number 16, but I'm not doubting Diggs anymore. He's going to be a top 5 wide receiver to finish the year, in my opinion. So let's get to some league news and injury updates. And like I said, just me today, so just going to give my quick thoughts. But And I might have missed some stuff because I put these notes together last night. So if there's any major updates here, let me pull something up real quick just in case, making sure I'm not missing any major updates. But basically, look, we had those covered updates from the Falcons game was in trouble. The Colts game was in trouble. Falcons is looking good. Colts is looking good. And then the Patriots game is looking like it's going to be played. But I haven't seen the latest update from that. Let's see here. Let me look it up. Patriots game, week 6. Okay. Oh, the schedule changed again. But it looks like the Patriots-Broncos game is still on tomorrow at 10 a.m., so we're good. I don't think there's any pushbacks to Tuesday as of yet, but you, as always, you got to keep your eye on that. But the big thing that happened this week, and it happened during the Monday night game, or was it during the Tuesday night game? Oh, it happened during the Tuesday night game because we didn't talk about it on the last episode. Le'Veon Bell has signed with the Chiefs. Obviously, this takes away from Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's value. Look, Le'Veon Bell's not playing this week, so fire Clyde up. Maybe he's going to beast out knowing that someone else is coming for his job. He's still a solid option even when Bell comes in. Look, I'm not as worried as most fantasy managers when it comes to Clyde Edwards-Hilaire. I have Clyde Edwards-Hilaire in one of my leagues that I care a lot about. And I'm not panicking, but I'm worried. I'm mildly worried. Just because, look, I for sure thought, if you asked me before the Le'Veon Bell signing, even though he's been somewhat disappointing, which I warned people about, I said Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to be this top 5 running back that everybody thinks he's going to be, and it didn't look like he was going to be that, whether Le'Veon Bell came to town or not. Now with Bell there, look, before this, I thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to be a top 10 running back by the end when it's all said and done, hands down. But now with this, I think he's more of a high-end RB2. And look, that's still valuable. Like in that league, I have Kareem Hunt and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Look, right now, Kareem Hunt is an elite RB1. And then I have a high-end RB2, at least for this week in RB1, as my starting running backs. I still feel very good as Kareem Hunt and Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my running backs. I also have Nick Chubb. So when Nick Chubb comes back, I'm still looking good there. Because for me, and I told this to Justin on one of the previous podcasts, that, look, having Kareem Hunt be an elite RB1 is nice. But him and Nick Chubb were both elite high-end RB2s, arguably low-end RB1s when they were both playing. I would rather have them both. If I roster them both, which I do, I would rather have them both back and have a 2 strong low-end RB1s or 2 strong high-end RB2s, or an RB1 and an RB2, than have one elite RB1, because now my second RB spot or my first flex spot, and I say first flex spot because at most of the leagues that we play in the first round fantasy, and like all of our friends, we play 2 flexes, which is way more fun. Please, Fantasy World needs to switch from 1 flex to 2 flex, but we could talk about that another day. But I would much rather have Hunt and Chubb back together. But anyways, that being said, we're talking about Lev Bell and the Chiefs, and I'm going to name this video Running Back Hell with Clyde and Bell. Or Running Back Committee Hell with Clyde and Bell. Look, the bottom line is we play in a game that we're heavily invested in, both just maybe financially and maybe emotionally. And at least, it's something that you care deeply about, most people that play fantasy football. But we play in a game where the people who control our fate, like the coaches and the players, are not worried about the outcome that we're hoping for. So it's not like when you look, if you're a movie fan, right? And you're a fan of Christopher Nolan and he's making his next movie, he's making that movie for you so he can make the best movie possible and please his fan, right? Okay. And you could say the same as football players and coaches for their regular fans. But for your fantasy football team and your fantasy football players, these coaches and these players are not working towards benefiting your fantasy football team. So it's a losing game because it's banking on randomness, right? You're banking that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to stay the starter that whole entire year when so many circumstances could change that are completely out of your control. And it's not the team's goal to make sure that he gets the most stats possible. So this is what happens. They sign a running back. It helps their football team overall, helps them win a Super Bowl, which is their goal. So we're playing a game of randomness where we're not in control and the people who are in control aren't there to benefit us. So things like this are going to happen. And I'm in a couple leagues where a trade for Le'Veon Bell is not going to work out. I don't, in the league that I have, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't have a piece necessarily that I'm willing to give up to get Le'Veon Bell. So I'm just going to have to ride it out. And look, like I said, I'm not worried. I don't think Le'Veon Bell's going to take over and be the starting running back. I think they're both going to have a solid role. And I think Clyde is going to still be an RB2, a solid RB2. And I think Le'Veon Bell is going to be a flex option. So that's basically what's going to happen. It does suck for Clyde Edwards-Helaire owners because more than likely you're not rostering both. If somebody was rostering both, that was totally random. So that's that. So major injury updates. Let's just run through this real quick. Sammy Watkins is out. So to me, fire up McCole Hardman. I've been had my eye on McCole Hardman before Sammy Watkins went out, but definitely with Sammy Watkins out, it just helps Tyreek Hill. It helps Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It helps Travis Kelce, and it helps McCole Hardman. So it sucks that Sammy Watkins out. I don't want him to be injured, but this is the game that we play. Of course, we all know Dalvin Cook's out. Fire up Alexander Mattison. I'm hesitant because, look, everybody else in the fantasy world is like, set it and forget it, start Alexander Mattison. I have him in a league where, and look, this is not normal situation where I might have better options, to be honest, but I'm still going to start him. Like, if he goes off, I'm going to feel like a fool. So I'm going to start him. Deontay Johnson of the Pittsburgh Steelers is out. This is interesting. I think, look, also I'm in a league where I have Chase Claypool, and I wasn't going to start him. But now that Deontay Johnson is confirmed out due to his back injury, I'm starting Chase Claypool. So I just, look, unless you have a better option, I would fire up Chase Claypool in your flex if you can. Odell has an illness. I haven't seen the update on that, but Jarvis Landry is going to play. It's looking like Melvin Gordon has not traveled with the team to New England, and it's because of an illness. But it's very ironic that he got the DUI. They're seeing what the team's going to do suspension-wise if they are going to suspend him. He also gets an illness, and he doesn't travel to New England due to the illness. Holy crap. Phillip Lindsay. Look, Phillip Lindsay is one of the most underrated players in the NFL, one of the most underrated fantasy players in the NFL. Look, it's not a great matchup with New England, but he's going to be the starting running back. If you have Phillip Lindsay on your roster, you just came into a gold mine at least while Melvin Gordon's out. Unless you have a better option, like I say, Phillip Lindsay is a must start. Finally, Chris Godwin is back. A lot of us have been waiting for this. I have Chris Godwin in multiple leagues. I am so happy that he's back. I have him in leagues where I've been struggling and he's back, so I need that, and I'm glad. I have him in a league where I'm 4-0 and he's back, and I'm like, whoa, this is just a huge bump. So great. DJ, as far as I know, DJ Chark is still questionable. I haven't seen the update on this yet. Okay, he's still questionable. But obviously, whether he's playing or not, Laviska Shenault is a flex consideration. Noah Fant is out. Leonard Fournette remains limited. So those are just some of the things. I might have missed some stuff, But like I said, whenever you're looking at a situation where like Leonard Fournette's limited, if he's out, Ronald Jones gets a boost. I think most people are starting Ronald Jones anyway. So if you are losing some of those players and you don't have the backups on your roster, here are some replacements I would consider. And I'm not going to do fresh flex picks of the week because that's like a this or that situation. And it's going to be boring if I say, hey, would I start McCole Hardman or Jerry Jeudy? And I'm going to just say, hey, I would start McCole Hardman. Like, that's not my choice. I'm just saying, and I would actually start McCole Hardman, but that's boring with one person. So I'm just going to give you guys some optional flexes for replacements if you're missing players, right? Because normally, like, you have a player on your bench that you can move into that wide receiver spot if Chark's out. So now you need to, or your flex, you have a player in your flex that you're going to move to your wide receiver spot or the running back spot, whatever, and you need to replace them with a waiver wire pickup or somebody deep on your bench. Look, Chase Edmonds is a flex option. I don't know why people aren't starting him. I started him last week. It worked out well for me. If Chase Edmonds is available, he better not be in any league, but pick him up if he isn't. And he's a startable option if you lost a key player this week. DeAndre Swift, he is my dark horse of the week this week. I think he's going to have a great game of this week, and I think he's going to have a great second half of the season. I've been riding or dying with that, so hopefully it becomes true. Don't be so down on Dalton Schultz from the last week performance. It was just a dud. He's had some really good games. Who knows how this Andy Dalton thing is going to work out? It could work out great for Dalton Schultz. So consider Dalton Schultz. Like, I'm in a league where the tight ends look horrible, and I'm just, all right, I'm rolling with Dalton Schultz because, you know, you're throwing a dart throw if you don't have one of the top 5 tight ends. So just, you got to roll with what you got. And if you, like, for example, if you were only rostering Noah Fant and Dalton Schultz is available, I think he's someone that you can consider. Jamal Williams needs to be picked up in every league. He had 8 catches his last game before the bye week for 95 yards. I don't know what he's doing on waiver wires. People need to pick him up. Jerry Jeudy is a flex consideration every week for me. He is the number 1 wide receiver on that team, and Drew Lock is looking like he's going to play. McCole Hardman, like I talked about with Sammy Watkins out, is a very, very solid pick. Another guy should not be on the waiver wire. He's in that Chiefs offense. He's, like we always say, he's only 1 or 2 injuries away from being a very, very solid player in fantasy. And then also a lot of people drop Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Lazard is still out. He played better with Adams in the lineup. Pick up Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and he's a start consideration for me in the flex every week. Okay, let's talk about some fantasy etiquette. One of the things that we like to do here on the First Round Strategy podcast, I just think that, look, when we do the main podcast, we don't have a lot of time to talk about these extra things that go into playing this game that we love. And I like to talk about ways to interact with your league and things like that, and kind of strategies and all that kind of stuff. And every week I want to have a fantasy etiquette of the week. We had a different topic, but I want to make sure that Joe is available for that topic. So I changed the fantasy etiquette of the week this week. And that is, don't give up. Even if you're 0-5, 0-4, 1-4, 2-3, well, you definitely shouldn't give up if you're 2-3. Look, don't give up and always set your lineup no matter what. I just think you have to. Don't give up, because I'll never forget this. A couple years ago, in the main league that me and my buddies playing, and everybody on the First Round Fantasy podcast is in, Beer Drinkers Unite. A couple years ago, I was 0-5, and I never give up in my teams, no matter, even if I finish the year 0-13, I'm setting my lineup every week. I'm making pickups every week. I'm trying to beat somebody, play spoiler or whatever. And I also think there's something ethical about setting your lineup every week. We'll get to that in a second. But I was 0-5. I came back and won 7 in a row and barely missed the playoffs. Like, I actually should have made the playoffs. I'm not going to get into that controversy. There was some BS going on in that league at the time, but I won like 7 in a row. And then I believe I lost one and then won again and barely missed the playoffs. So never give up. Like, even if you're 0-5 right now, you could still make the playoffs. It's very, very possible. And for me, I made a trade in that league, which actually ignited my comeback. So maybe you need to make a switch. I'm not saying make a switch. You might be, maybe you have Michael Thomas coming back. Maybe you have Chris Godwin coming back, and that will be ignite your team. But like I said, don't give up. And no matter what, even if you're 0-12, start your lineup. Look, other players are depending on you to beat your opponent for them to get in the playoffs. It should be a fair game every week where every opponent is playing against a set lineup. Look, the commissioners always don't have time to go through everybody's lineup and make sure everything's set. And it should be on you. If people miss a last minute, like if somebody misses a last minute, somebody's out last minute before a game starts and that person didn't set their lineup in time, that's nothing we can do about that. But if somebody like purposely doesn't set their lineup, or it was the empty roster spot the whole week and it's just like the tight end spot's empty, and like the commissioner needs to go in and set the lineups, because that's only fair in my opinion. Everybody should be playing against a full lineup every week. And I'll tell you, I'm in a league where I'm 0-5, and it's a keeper league where you keep 6 players. I was playing a couple last week, and I was likely going to lose. And I was holding on to an extra player, and I didn't have a defense in, right? And I was like, okay, there's still a couple defenses left for the Monday games. I'm going to see how some players do. And then if one of these guys don't perform well, I'm going to drop one, and then I'll pick up a defense for Monday night. So, but I was down by like 20 or something. And hypothetically, we've seen defenses go off for like 25 points before. So I still have a chance to win. And also the points against that player, like if that manager has the same record as another manager for the last spot in the playoffs and they have equal points for, those points against are going to be a tiebreaker. And whether I beat them or I add more points against, that's going to affect the outcome of the standings. So I think you always have to set your lineup. Don't ever give up. Look, obviously, once you're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, it's hard to stay motivated. But for me, you don't have to be 100% dedicated active like you would be if you were in the playoff hunt, but at least set your lineup and have it full every week. That's my fantasy etiquette of the week. All right, let's get to some dynasty keeper deep dive in here. And look, I like to talk about dynasty keeper leagues. I play in a couple, and it's the best. I love it because I'm more of like I want to build my franchise type guy. Like I love redraft leagues, absolutely fun. But me, I'm more of the calculated, build a team over time type guy. I love doing that kind of stuff. And look, the hard thing about podcasting about fantasy is your league mates watch the podcast. So then you're giving away your research and your knowledge, but whatever, you can't worry about that. Like if we want this podcast to be something, we can't worry about that. We just got to, spread the knowledge, but not that I know anything. But so last week I said, drop your veterans that you're not starting, like your AJ Greens, your Deshaun Jacksons, and pick up young players. And I said, pick up a guy like Chase Claypool. Look how it resulted, which I roster Chase Claypool in my dynasty league. So I'm very happy about that. In that same league, there's a guy I've been eyeing. And I think if you're in a dynasty league and you want a young prospect in wide receiver, I would pick up Gabriel Davis of the Buffalo Bills. Now watch, somebody in my dynasty league is going to go pick up Gabriel Davis. I don't have a spot for him right now, or else I would definitely add him. He's had some great games as of late. I'm not saying like he hasn't had great games where he's going to win you a fantasy week, but he's had some very promising games with John Brown out. And the Bills love this guy. Look, Josh Allen's young. And this guy, so he had 9 targets for 5 catches and 58 yards. Week 3, he had 4 catches for 81 yards. He has 2 touchdowns, and that's on very limited targets. Gabriel Davis, I think once either John Brown or Diggs leaves Buffalo, is going to be one of Josh Allen's favorite targets. So if you're in a dynasty league, keeper league, keep an eye on Gabriel Davis. And one last thing, want to talk about some super flex options, call it the super flexy segment. And all I got here really is like, because I'm in a super flex league where most of the quarterbacks are rostered. So there's not much flexibility there. But as we've seen, and also a couple of the managers in that league only hold 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks. And if they lose Dak, then now they only have 2 quarterbacks or 1 quarterback, and they're kind of screwed. They got to make a trade to get another player. It made me think, and I do this too. I have league members in that league who do it. Think about rostering some backup quarterbacks. Now, I'm not saying don't sacrifice. Like, look, I have like, so I play in a dynasty superflex league, right? And I have like Chase Claypool and Alexander Madison, like before they became like starters this week in fantasy lineups. So like, I'm not saying drop guys with that much potential for this season or going forward for a backup quarterback. But if you have the roster spots, I would look what happened. Imagine if you were holding Dalton in that superflex league and now he's the starter. Or I would hold on to a guy like Jameis Winston or Tua in Miami. Like, look at situations where it's possible that this backup could end up being the starter this season, like Brissett or Jacob Eason in Indianapolis. Keep an eye out for those situations, or keep an eye out for a situation where if this quarterback went down, it's kind of like a running back handcuff, right? You don't want to roster every running back handcuff, but there are some like a Alexander Madison or a Latavius Murray. Look at quarterback situations where if that quarterback went down, the guy who steps in is going to be in a great situation in a very, very viable 2 quarterback league or super flex starter, or even a regular 1 quarterback starter like an Andy Dalton is definitely considered for that. Take a look at Jameis Winston in New Orleans. If Drew Brees went down and Jameis Winston stepped into that role, throwing to Michael Thomas, and I think that they could keep him in check there as far as picks and everything. That would be great for Jameis Winston. But yes, so those are my dynasty and superflex tips. That's going to do it for the first round strategy podcast this week. Just solo, so definitely wanted to keep it short. Thank you all for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on our audio podcast. Of course, search us on your favorite audio platform. We're more than likely there. And yes, subscribe, hit that like button. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of the video today, and we will see you all